Right, bit of a workshop update here then, and we thought we'd start with engines. So if you roll the thingy bit, and then we'll be back in a second.
You mean this thing?
Okay, so several engines on build at the moment, and a few engines, or three in fact, queued behind there at the moment. This engine is a 4.6, will be built up with stage 3 cylinder heads. It's going to have a Weber carburetor on it and will live inside a Land Rover 90. This engine is another 4.6 stage 3 engine, destined for a classic LSE Range Rover to replace a 4.2 engine. This engine here is another 4.6 engine. It's getting really repetitive around here. The cylinder heads on this one, however, are stage 1. So this is destined for the Mogrod chassis that me and Steve picked up the other night, that we put some pictures up on Facebook of. And I tripped over the trailer and cut my leg open.
It's quite funny.
For you. This engine here is a 3.9. This is going to go into a classic Range Rover. So Holly's now building that. You can see the RPi main stud kit and the crankshaft's installed. We've got the rods for this over here. Again, RPi stud kit installed, as with all of our 3.5 and 3.9 engines. And then we've got a few other components here laid out ready. This is the crankshaft for the 4.6, destined for the 90. And the stage 3 cylinder heads, destined for that 90 as well. And then over here are the 14 bolt heads for the 3.9 block, which is going to go into the 3.9, which is actually going all the way over to Holland to go into that Range Rover Classic. Camshaft wise, the 3.9 is going to be running a TorqueMax camshaft, bottom end grunt. The 4.6 stage 1 for the Mogrod is running a 270, that's sort of our stage 1 camshaft, and obviously there's plenty of torque in a 4.6. So a nice mid-range 270 camshaft there, and the two stage 3 engines are going to be running the Piper 285 cam. So after them, we've got a 4.6 engine for a Thor Range Rover to be built up, and we've just taken orders for a 3.9 for a Land Rover 90 and a 4.6 for a Range Rover Classic, potentially a soft dash. It might go into a 92 manual. The gentleman owns both and is now deciding which one to put the 4.6 into. So yeah, they will obviously follow suit, and we'll film a bit of them as well. Let's go into the workshop and have a look in there.
Alright.
Well, we've just had this rather, in my eyes, lovely P6 delivered. The customer, I believe, actually owns two more of these, done up as they should be, classic, and this one is custom, obviously. The reason it's been dropped off is for a tune-up, and it actually houses one of our engines, which I will show you in a second. But yeah, not going to be to everyone's taste, but I love it. Very nice. Manual 5-speed LT77. And under the bonnet, I think I'm going to have to stop recording and start again, because I can't put the bonnet up. We'll be fine, we'll just hold it. So yeah, a 3.9 RPi Engineering built engine with the Edelbrock 500 carb and the RPi ignition amplifier and leads, coming for tune-up, and a good once-over, not just on the engine but on mechanics underneath the car as well. So watch this space and we'll update you on this. Let's pop in the workshop and see what's happening there. Okay, so we've not seen this car in the workshop for a little while. It's the 50th anniversary that's destined for Australia. We've come up with the next programme of work with the customer. Obviously we have to work a bit, emails back and forwards to come up with the next programme to put it in the workshop. We don't like to just pop it in for a 5-minute job. So yeah, we've got a few list of things here. We're just making sure that the sunroof panel slides nicely forwards and backwards with one hand, so that you don't have to anchor it back with both hands. Ensuring all the drain tubes are free flowing. I think one was disconnected and one was blocked. And then we can finally fit the headlining, and for this we've got some extra anchor points in the back, which we're I think for 6th and 7th seats, which a customer has asked we just put holes in the headlining for and then cap off so that he can fit those seats in Australia. Aircon drain tubes, which is a thing on these P38 Range Rovers. Underneath, around the transmission tunnel, there's a drain tube on each side for the air conditioning. Often people who buy these cars think they've got a water leak when they first drive them on a warm day because there's a puddle underneath, but we don't suggest you do this. Stick your finger in it and taste it. You'll see there's no antifreeze in it, but you don't have to taste it. You can see there's no antifreeze because it's clear water rather than blue or red. So yeah, we're checking those over, and then for us we need to get this car in for an MOT so we can actually start getting some miles on this 4.6 stage 3 engine, start breaking it in to get a feel for the car then, and then we can come up with any mechanical issues that we haven't found on doing work on the car but in driving it, because obviously in feeling a car when you're driving it you get a lot more than just looking underneath it and replacing bits just for the sake of it. So yeah, that's where we're going on this. I think that just leads us into the next bit, doesn't it? As always.
Yeah. Well, it normally does when you finish one thing, yeah.
Should we go out in the MG?
Alright then.
Okay. Right, so the MG, we'll go on a little road test in a minute. Everything's in, she's all up and running. So under the bonnet, not what we would normally see, because this has original SU intake manifold setup that was specific to the MGB GT. The customers requested that we continue down this route rather than going to Weber. One for sort of the original look under the bonnet, although it's not an original V8 model. Also for his current budget. So we've put all the money into getting an engine in there that's going to last, and then later on the ignition system and the carburetor system can be upgraded if needed. It drives very, very nicely anyhow. Obviously there could be a little bit more from this engine in doing those upgrades, but for what this customer's after, this has ticked all of his boxes, and obviously will now allow him to enjoy the car whilst doing a bit of a rolling restoration on the vehicle itself. So it's also had a stainless steel exhaust system, which I think we've explained in some workshop updates we've done, that we're waiting for some bits on. Again, just to make the exhaust system last there. I reckon we ought to get down the road and do a road test, Steve.
Let's go.
Okay, so that's what we did under the bonnet, and now time for a little road test.
I like this bit.
Why? Because you like the abandoning you on the side of the road?
I just like being in V8s.
So it does everything it needs to do. Obviously we know that this engine could do a little bit more than it's capable of at the moment should we upgrade the carburetor or the ignition system, which the customer is planning on doing at a later date. And but at the moment it's still a really nice little torquey 3.5 MGB GT, and overdrive works. Have you ever driven a car with overdrive, Steve?
Every car, if you count fifth gear.
Yes, let's say. There's something very classical and right about having overdrive on a car like this. With a 3.5 in anyway. Okay, so despite being on a pair of SUs where we'd normally use a Weber, obviously, this engine still actually does a lot of what we ask it to, really. I can drop up into fourth gear here at 20 miles an hour. The engine pulls and responds smoothly. That Torque Max camshaft obviously helps with that bottom end grunt. Just flick it into overdrive there at 2000 RPM. And I think the customer's going to be incredibly happy with this, to have his MG back on the road with a really well sorted engine. We've done some road testing in the city as per his request and sat in traffic, and then on top of that as well, we've gone one step further and sat it after a road test. There's plenty of heat soak. We've sat it in the workshop for half an hour, just sat there ticking over and showing his fans cut in and out. So this is why we do all of our road testing. It would be far more time efficient for us if we were just to put the engines in, set them up and hand the keys back. But we want to know that this car is not going to play the customer up. One thing we found on this car when we were in the workshop was the ignition system was playing up. Initially, obviously, we checked the distributor and coil out, which aren't ones we normally use, but on investigating we found the 12 volt power feed to the coil was actually being lost at times. So we ran a new feed from the ignition barrel down to the coil. Again, that's something that had we just fitted the engine and turned the key, started it and set it up, the customer would have found that out on his way home.
Not where you want to find things out.
No, definitely not.
Other than your car now pulls very nicely.
It's more fuel efficient.
It's more fuel efficient.
And the engine's going to last a very long time. The rest of the car might need a little bit more work over the years, but I know that is this customer's plan, rolling restoration, starting with the engine. Those SU carburetors are not too bad at fueling. They're actually a really nice pair when we inspected them. I'm going for fifth, I shouldn't, I need overdrive. And